Rebuilding New Orleans and the Mississippi Gulf Coast may cost as much as $200 billion. Toxic water still haunts parts of the city. Some Louisiana residents are suing insurance companies that won't cover flood damage under their policies. Residents charge it was wind and government neglect that destroyed their homes. Thousands of New Orleans residents got out of the city by helicopter thanks to the U.S. Coast Guard. Early Show national correspondent Tracy Smith is live in New Orleans with more on that heroic mission. Tracy, good morning.
Good morning, Harry. Coast Guard Air Station New Orleans, which is just across the river, had to evacuate during the hurricane. But even before the winds died down, their 5 helicopter crews were the first to fly back into this city and start saving lives.
We flew in right after the storm. The wind was still blowing 50, 60 miles an hour.
The houses were broken into matchsticks. The ones that were still standing were up to their rooftops in water.
It's amazing to see how things can go straight to hell really fast.
It's been more than 2 weeks since these members of the U.S. Coast Guard Search and Rescue got their first glimpse of Katrina's wrath, but the images still play daily in their minds.
People were using anything and any means possible to try and signal us.
And seeing all the people was the thing that I think had the biggest impact on me. Just the first day, they were just everywhere.
And I'm sure you had to make tough decisions. How do you know where to stop, who to get?
You know, you do the best you can, and that's all based on your background and your values and your training.
People are sitting there fighting, trying to get in, and they're so scared. You see the look on their faces.
You know, in that situation, how'd you decide what to, if people rushing the helicopter, how do you handle that?
You just gotta say no. You gotta stick your priorities. You gotta take the kids. You need to take the sick and the people that need your help, and just let them know you're gonna be back for them, not to give up hope.
But I remember the first day, we were the only show in town.
In the days that followed, more rescuers came from every corner of the United States and soon filled the skies over New Orleans.
There were so many aircraft in the air. I remember at one point I was, the first night here, I was hoisting people and just looked up and there were 8 other aircraft, and all of us were in a hover pulling people up off houses.
How risky was it, and how amazing is it that there wasn't an accident?
Utterly amazing. There is no textbook on how do you pull people off of a house when you're surrounded by power lines, trees, phone poles.
In just 6 days, the Coast Guard lifted 6,471 people from New Orleans, each rescue as remarkable and unique as the mission itself.
There's this elderly woman, I can't even guess how she got there. She's sitting on the roof of a car in a lawn chair, surrounded by water, like there's water up to the hood of the car.
Picked her up?
We picked her up.
This is how pilot Maria Roerick spent her very first week on the job.
You don't even imagine something like this ever happening in your career, and I wouldn't have even been able to fathom it had I not seen it for myself.
And what they saw was a city they no longer recognized.
Show of hands, how many of you had homes that were damaged? So how do you go through it when you're thinking about your own home, your own family? What pushes you forward?
It's a selfless job. It would haunt me for the rest of my life if I didn't save somebody who needed help.
In a terrible situation, you saw some people rise above what was going on to do the right thing and do their jobs. That's what we did.
It was overwhelming, just flying over the city after seeing all the neighborhoods underwater and being able to put all that aside and focus on the mission of saving people. I mean, every time I think about that, it just makes my heart pitter-patter.
Hundreds of other Coast Guard men and women have similar stories, and the numbers are just amazing. In the 50 years before Katrina, that air station had a total of 3,689 rescues. But with help from other Coast Guard crews, they nearly doubled that number in just 6 days, Harry.
Tracy, what kind of shape are these guys in? I mean, they've been rescuing people for 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. What happens now?
Well, they're exhausted. Their families are spread all over the country, so they're dealing with that. The hurricane tore a big hole in their hangar, so they're going to get to work fixing that.
All right.
But they're ready to get back on the job.
Tracy Smith, thanks so much. Good job down in New Orleans.